Hello and welcome to Elderly Care, the channel where we gently uncover the silent truths of aging, offer heartfelt stories, and share real-life wisdom to help you live with dignity, clarity, and confidence in your golden years. Today's story may quietly change the way you see yourself or someone you love forever, because there's something no one talks about, but nearly every senior experiences. Let's begin. The smell of old people. 96% could disappear just by cleaning these secret areas. Margaret had always taken pride in keeping a neat home. Her kitchen floor sparkled. Her garden bloomed every spring like clockwork. But it wasn't until her granddaughter gently leaned in one day and asked, "Grandma, did you forget to shower today?" that Margaret realized something had shifted. At first, she was embarrassed. She didn't understand. She bathed regularly, used soap, wore perfume. But there was something lingering. Something she hadn't noticed before. A faint, musty odor. Not overpowering, but present. Persistent. It was a scent she couldn't quite place and didn't know how to fix. Margaret is not alone. Across the world, millions of older adults face the quiet burden of what society often calls old people smell. It's a term that carries with it a sting of judgment, yet few stop to ask what causes it, and more importantly, how can we address it? Not with shame, but with understanding and dignity. Scientists have long known that as we age, our bodies go through a range of changes. Skin chemistry shifts. Oil production slows down in some places and increases in others. Cellular turnover decreases. One particular compound, 2-nonenal, has been identified as a contributor to the scent often associated with aging. Unlike the sweat-based odors of youth, 2-nonenal isn't eliminated by regular soap. It hides in oil-rich, poorly ventilated areas of the body, and over time, without targeted hygiene, it builds up. But here's the hopeful truth. According to several studies, including one from Japan's Technical Research Center for Odor and Fragrance, up to 96% of this scent can be reduced or eliminated simply by adjusting hygiene practices to include specific, often overlooked parts of the body. These aren't complicated routines or expensive treatments. They're simple acts of care, but they require us to see and touch the parts of ourselves that aging sometimes teaches us to ignore. Behind the ears, inside the belly button, the back of the neck, under the breasts, between skin folds, the scalp, especially if hair is thinning, behind the knees, between the toes, and yes, the lower back and groin area. These spots, when neglected, become havens for the very compounds that contribute to senior body odor. Why do these places get missed? The answer is often tender and practical. As we age, reaching certain areas becomes physically difficult. Arthritis, balancing issues, reduced flexibility, these all make thorough washing a challenge. Some seniors also experience a dulling of the sense of smell, making it harder to self-detect changes in body odor. Others, like Margaret, simply haven't been taught that the hygiene habits of youth may no longer be sufficient in old age. In Fort Worth, Texas, 78-year-old Emmett had a similar story. A widower who had prided himself on his independence. Emmett began noticing that friends no longer lingered as closely when he greeted them. He brushed it off until, one afternoon, his adult son visited and casually offered to do laundry, and added, "Let's freshen up the guest chair cushions too." Emmett got the message. At first, he felt humiliated, but then Something in him clicked. He wasn't angry. He was curious. Emmett began reading. He spoke to his primary care physician, and what he discovered was liberating. This wasn't about him being careless. It was about adapting to his changing body. He began paying more attention to how he bathed. Not just that he bathed. He learned to focus on the folds under his arms, the back of his neck, and the spaces between his toes. He even began using a gentle scrub mitt once a week, designed for sensitive aging skin, to remove dead skin cells that regular soap couldn't wash away. Within weeks, not only did Emmett feel fresher, he felt more confident. His social life picked up again. He returned to community events he had begun to avoid. Something as small as adjusting his hygiene routine had given him a renewed sense of self. Margaret, too, began a quiet transformation. Her doctor had explained the biology behind the smell, not to shame her, but to empower her. When she learned about tunoninol and how it clung to sebum-rich areas of the skin, she began using a Japanese green tea soap specifically formulated to reduce that compound. She also began gently cleaning her navel and behind her ears every day with a warm cloth and mild cleanser. The results were not just physical. There was an emotional shift too. She began feeling more in control of her aging process. She stopped shying away from hugs. She welcomed her grandchildren's closeness again. Aging no longer felt like a slow, invisible erosion of her dignity. Instead, it felt like a new chapter, one that required awareness and care, but offered peace in return. For older adults, especially those over 60, this realization can be quietly life-changing. So many have spent their lives putting others first, raising children, managing homes, supporting spouses. But self-care in older age is not selfish. It's essential, and far from being cosmetic, it is a deeply human expression of self-respect. Creating a consistent routine doesn't have to be overwhelming. In fact, for seniors, especially those with mobility or energy limitations, the key is to simplify without sacrificing care. Margaret's nurse had offered a practical suggestion. Break the care down into 3 small steps. The first was timing. Rather than trying to do everything all at once, she began to pair small hygiene tasks with daily habits. After brushing her teeth, she would take a warm cloth to gently clean behind her ears and neck. Before putting on her clothes, she would check and dry the skin folds under her breasts and around her belly. At night, during her evening routine, she would gently swab her navel and moisturize her heels. None of these took more than a few minutes, but their cumulative effect was powerful. The second was tools. She had learned to select items that made the process easier on her body. A long-handled sponge helped her reach her back without strain. A small mirror helped her check places she could no longer see clearly. She even switched to a shower seat on days when she felt tired, allowing her to sit while she bathed without worrying about balance or slipping. The third was mindset. This perhaps was the most transformative. At first, Margaret, like many seniors, had felt shame, an emotion no one talks about when it comes to body odor in old age. It wasn't that she didn't care. It was that aging had made it harder to keep up, and no one had taught her that care had to evolve with her changing body. But now, with every gentle movement of the cloth or touch of moisturizer, she whispered kindness to herself. She reminded herself that her body had served her for decades, and this care was not a burden. It was an offering of gratitude. Family conversations, once awkward, had begun to shift as well. When Margaret's daughter Lisa visited for the weekend, Margaret shared her discovery, not with embarrassment, but with calm confidence. "I've started paying attention to some of the areas I didn't even realize I was neglecting," she said. "It's made a big difference in how I feel." Lisa had blinked, surprised at first, but then nodded thoughtfully. "You do seem lighter somehow, Mum. Happier." These conversations opened a bridge between generations. Margaret encouraged her granddaughter, who was studying nursing, to talk more openly about senior care with compassion. She reminded her that age wasn't something to be corrected or hidden. It was something to be honored, and honoring it began with understanding the subtle ways our bodies communicate their needs. Across the country, senior wellness programs have begun to quietly include modules about these secret areas. In Los Angeles, a geriatrician named Dr. Paul Kim has launched a pilot program in assisted living homes, teaching older adults simple, respectful ways to maintain hygiene without overexertion. The results, he said, have been remarkable. "We're seeing not just a decrease in reported odor," he said, but a rise in self-esteem. People smile more. They attend more social events. They make eye contact again. Odor, it turns out, is not just a physical issue. It becomes a silent barrier to connection. When a senior senses they carry an unpleasant smell, they may withdraw from others. They stop hugging grandchildren. They decline invitations. They retreat from the world, not out of preference, but out of quiet shame. But when that burden is lifted, when they feel fresh, clean, and in control again, the world opens up. Emmett, back in Fort Worth, now volunteers at his church every Tuesday. "I'm not just showing up," he told a friend one afternoon. "I feel like myself again." And part of that feeling, he said, came from the pride of knowing he smelled clean, presentable, and respectful, not just for others, but for himself. The data supports this emotional shift. A study from the University of Michigan tracked 300 seniors over the course of 6 months. Those who followed a daily hygiene routine that included attention to hidden body areas reported 45% greater confidence in social settings, 37% improvement in sleep quality, and 52% reduction in skin-related complaints. But beyond numbers, this is a human story. A story of returning to the simple, often overlooked, expressions of self-respect. A story of noticing the body's whispers instead of ignoring them. A story of older adults taking back control, not through grand gestures, but through quiet consistency. So if you are over 60, perhaps even 70 or 80, and you've noticed something subtle, a scent you can't quite place, a hesitation to get close to loved ones, a feeling that something is just off, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, have I been tending to the parts of my body that are easy to forget? There is no shame in this question, only courage. And when you begin again, perhaps today, with something as small as a damp cloth behind the ears or a gentle massage of the scalp, you're not just cleaning, you're reclaiming. You're telling yourself and the world that aging is not about decline, but about rediscovery. That freshness, vitality, and quiet pride are not lost with youth. They are rekindled with care. And most of all, that the smell of old age, 96% of it, can fade quietly, respectfully, almost entirely, when we simply learn to care for the places we forgot were part of us. Margaret closed her notebook. She smiled, breathing in the soft scent of jasmine from her garden. No perfume, no powder, just the clean, gentle scent of someone who remembers how to love herself. And that scent, as it turns out, is timeless. Thank you for watching Elderly Care. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more gentle wisdom made just for you. Take care and keep living with grace.